start the recording. So I've got
Oh,
10 a.m.
I'll
There
do
we
it
go.
again.
Thanks, Jeannie.
This is the CCS Executive Committee meeting of June 12th, 2024, and I am calling the meeting to order at 10 a.m. Could I get a roll call?
Austin,
Here.
Bertucci,
Here.
Dilger,
Here.
Dombrowski,
Here.
Dorfman,
Here.
Keelik.
Here.
Ms. Smith.
Here.
The CCS, we have Rebecca Malinowski, Deborah Wishmeyer, and Beth Stoneburner.
Okay, thank you, Beth. Any additions to the agenda?
Jeannie, I can just cover it in my executive director report, but I spoke with EBSCO yesterday, so I have an update on our novelist.
Okay.
info.
Okay, yeah, we'll put that in the executive director
Yeah.
report. EBSCO novelist. Okay. Any other additions to the agenda? Hearing none, I will adopt the agenda as presented. Do we have any public comment? No public comment today. Okay. Consent agenda. Could I get a motion to approve the 4 items on the consent agenda?
I move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
I'll
second. I heard Joanna first. Okay. Roll call, please.
Austin,
Yes.
Bertucci,
Yes.
Dilger,
Yes.
Dombrowski,
Yes.
Dorfman,
Yes.
Keelik,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, consent agenda is approved. Moving into our business section. First, we have some recommendations from the Budget and Finance Committee regarding amendments to the fiscal accountability policy. Anthony, can you give us a brief overview of that?
Yeah, so this is kind of relates a little bit to some legislation that's pending at the moment. In terms of, as directors, we know that there are some expenses that we can't move our organization forward if our policies are limiting. And that, I think, was one of these things, kind of like as the bid requirements go up with the state legislation, we thought that this would be one place we should look at our policies and make sure that Rebecca can take immediate action on some action items without requiring board approval.
Does anybody have any questions for Anthony?
No, I thought it was really clear in the packet.
It all made sense to me. Okay. Anthony, do you want to make that motion?
Sure. I move approval of the amendments to the fiscal accountability policy as discussed for recommendation to the executive committee.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Was that Lindsay? Sorry.
Yes, Lindsay seconded.
Thank you. Okay. Austin,
Yes.
Bertucci,
Yes.
Dilger,
Yes.
Dombrowski,
Yes.
Dorfman,
Yes. Yes.
Keelik,
Excuse me.
Yes.
Yes.
and Smith.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Anthony, and please thank the Budget and Finance Committee for their work on that.
Will do.
Okay, so in your packet, I believe Rebecca has given an update on pages 15 and 16 about new and potential members. Before I turn it over to her or to all of you for questions, I did want to highlight in particular Antioch. I believe this is not the first time that Antioch has reached out to us and determined that we are too expensive for them. Is that correct, Rebecca?
Yes. So I think right when Chris Holly started, which would have been like 2015, 2016, they reached out under their previous executive director and determined costs at that time were not sustainable for them. And then I just spoke with them again this week. I haven't heard anything official from them, but that was the impression I got from our conversation.
So I guess I'm curious for the executive committee what your thoughts are about that. Is that a concern? equity wise or otherwise?
Just for a little additional context, in probably like 2 or 3 years ago, I don't believe Anthony was the treasurer at that time. We took the fee structure back to budget and finance and said like, oh, should we revisit this? Should we look at this through an equity lens? And the feedback from the committee at that time was, well, if we're not getting complaints, it's probably fine. So I personally wanted to document that, like, we did hear from at least one member that, you know, their interest is sort of, whether or not they're interested is sort of a moot point based on our current pricing.
Personally, I think it's worth exploring. However, if the rest, I mean, if the thought is that the entire group isn't going to be interested, or wouldn't, you know, approve something that would allow Antioch or smaller libraries to become members, I don't want you and your team, Rebecca, to have to go through all that work only to be voted down in the end. So I think, I don't know, I think I'm curious to see what the rest of the group thinks. Would it be worth it for them?
Just had a question, other than like distributing costs to other libraries who have bigger budgets or things like that, are there any other mechanisms like, you know, grants from Rails or anything that could be considered for a smaller library to join? I guess I don't know, and this is like a big question, and I don't expect certainly an answer now, but I mean, other than reallocating amongst like the membership, I don't know how you would balance the books, so to speak, to give them a better rate without passing along the cost to the larger group. I don't know if there's other options.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question and one we can do some looking into. Other consortia have currently or in the past had various membership levels. That's not something that CCS has really done, in part because of how our pricing comes from Innovative. Everything's just kind of bundled together. We're not like paying more for one library or another necessarily. It's not like,
Right.
oh, you use acquisition, so we're going to get billed more for you. So, you know, that is something we could talk about. Like, are there libraries that get fewer services? What would those services be? Does that remove the value add of CCS in general? But I think that's an interesting avenue to look. The Rails grants so the one-time cost for Antioch to join CCS once we apply the Rails new member grants is actually less than the quoted migration costs to move to a new platform from where they're currently. So in one sense, like that's sort of been handled already by Rails. The other, like the LSAP support, you know, we are kind of already relooking at how we're using that in terms of paying for Find More Illinois. We're passing that along kind of outside of the Find More Illinois. We're passing that along based on how Rails is kind of allocating it to the consortia. So, I mean, that is a funding source that CCS could look at using differently. But in a sense, it is still redistributing from larger, like from one library to another. I'd have to do some more research into additional external sources.
I mean, for me, it's not pressing. I think, you know, but if you wanted to, you know, explore some of these things, I think that would be fine. But I don't think, for me, it's not an urgent thing.
Yeah.
I guess my thinking is like, what's the sense of the board on distributing membership costs to other libraries? Do you think people would be open to that? And if the sense is no, then I mean, in my opinion, I don't think Rebecca and her team should spend the time thinking about it.
I,
I would be
yeah,
okay with it personally, and Glenview would, but I don't know how the rest of the group would feel.
right. And I'm kind of with you, Lindsay. Like, I think Palatine would be okay with it because, you know, we have a strong EDI focus and our board does too. But I don't have a sense of the general membership. And maybe that's the first step, is to, you know, ask governing board if this is something we want CCS to pursue, and, you know, does it involve budget and finance? Looking at some other models for pricing, or
I think that's a great idea, Jeannie. Put it to the group and see, and, you know, we can just do like a straw poll type thing.
I mean, Joanna, the next governing board meeting would be yours in August. Are you comfortable with having that?
I'm fine. I don't know how the Park Ridge board feels about it. I think that they really like that the last couple of times I presented our fees, there's been decrease every year, because I've been saying, you know, the more members we bring in, the more cost savings there is. There's, you know, certainly the value add we all know is there. So I honestly, I don't know like where they would come down on that, but I mean, I'm certainly happy to introduce it. I think it's worth taking it, as Lindsay said before, Rebecca and her team do all this work to take it out to the group and just do a straw poll to see if people are interested in, you know, more equity-based funding models. And if the consensus is no, then we can table it. And if this comes up again, you know, revisit in the future. Yeah, I'm fine with that if Rebecca's cool with that.
Yeah, I think that sounds great. We'll make a note to add it to the governing board agenda, and we can have a discussion there. I think that sounds perfect.
Okay. That's great.
One question that I think could come up from governing board is, what might the financial impact be to existing fees? I think if that's something that we could maybe at least have a ballpark for, like your fees would go up by, you know, 3%, or, you know, whatever it is. I think that would help governing board to understand what they would be, you know, committing to or saying I'm not interested in.
So I guess, Monica, what I was thinking Lindsay was saying is that's the research that we don't want CCS staff to have to spend a lot of time figuring out, if there's not just a general interest in potentially absorbing some more costs in order to, you see what I'm saying? I feel like this
I
first
do.
discussion is more
I
like,
do, but I don't think they can be separated from some libraries. Like I would abstain from voting if I didn't understand what potential costs would be, because that's a conversation I would have to take back to my board. So I'm not asking for exact figures or suggesting we go that far, but like what can Antioch afford to pay, right? And how much of a residual does that leave that other libraries would have to cost share, is kind of.
so
I
I guess
think
if
I
I
could
can
get into, I think I could like get into orders of magnitude without spending a lot of staff
Okay.
time on this. I think I could get somewhere in like, are we talking 3% or 30%?
Right.
You know, like how many zeros are we looking at?
Yeah,
I
that's
think
what
I
I'm
could have,
suggesting.
yeah.
Well, I think there's the
I could
additional
go
question
after-
of, is it a one-time thing? Is it something we're doing specifically for Antioch, or is it a bigger overall restructuring of, like you said, with levels and stuff? Because we're very close to Fox River Grove. They're a very small library.
Right.
They obviously cannot afford to be part of a consortium, which was part of the discussion when we talked about going to Find More. So would
Yeah.
it be more, which I know is now making it a much larger project that we were trying to avoid, but it seems like it is something to consider. Is it something we would be considering for Antioch or for many other very small libraries? Like Henry County has lots of them. So
Yeah, and my intention in bringing this up was that it was not about Antioch, that it was about looking at making CCS membership more affordable long-term for smaller libraries with smaller budgets. You know, as Rebecca said, the Rails grant really helps people get on board, but it's the sustaining the annual fees that's the tricky part. I will also share that I was on a committee in Swan that went through a similar process of restructuring how we charged people. And there are a zillion ways to skin this cat, right? It's like, okay, how much of your fee is going to be based on your collection size, and how much is going to be based on your population size or your budget size, and maybe it's 0% on your collection size or whatever. And there were, 15 different models, and in some of them, some existing libraries actually might see less of a cost, and other libraries it would go up, right? So it's not a clear cut, like, okay, it's going to be 3% across the board for everybody in order to do this. So I just want to make sure when we're talking to people about this, an order of magnitude is good, but we are clear that, it's not as clear cut as everybody's going to see the same change.
Yeah, I think the big question is, in the balance of adding members and resource sharing and providing access to materials, is in the past, the governing board's focus has been on recruiting sort of like culturally and financially similar libraries, like libraries that are interested in the same type of sharing, that like want to, like, for the most part, have the staff to do their own cataloging, like for the most part are meeting their individual libraries' needs and have the funding to continue doing that. If that's the direction the board wants to go, where it's like, well, these are the services we provide, this is the type of consortium we are, you got to pay to play. Or is it like, okay, so West Chicago or North Chicago? North Chicago is like in our service area, but they have joined Prairie Cat because Prairie Cat is more affordable. So like, are we okay with that? And if we are, and saying like, okay, maybe Antioch should look at Prairie Cat instead of CCS, and we're fine with this like intermingling of service areas, I think that's kind of the question. Do we want to like have geographic saturation? And if we do, how do we make that affordable for everyone? But if we're like, we just want to like keep doing what we're doing, we like our group, we like where we're at, we're happy to take on new members, assuming they fit into our current ecosystem. So it's less about like, how would we restructure? What is the research on that? And more like philosophically, where's governing board at this for the next 5 years on this, which is perfect timing moving into our strategic planning. So I think we can take a temperature at governing board, and that will help determine how much time we want to spend on that discussion, even within strategic planning. If everyone's like, no, we're just good, like we've had enough membership growth, we're happy, it'd be great if more members joined, but it's not a priority. Or if it's like, you know what, adding members is exciting, like our collection's growing, we have more resources, this is cool, our fees go down, how can we get more members? Then we'll do a deeper dive. Does that feel like a reasonable starting point?
Yeah,
And
that was super helpful for me because I didn't, I inherited a library who was already a member. So this is the first time I'm hearing all of that.
Yeah. So we'll, I will self-limit how much staff time I spend prepping for this. I promise I will not go wild.
Only one spreadsheet with and only one tab.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, yeah, I think, I'm definitely not coming up with like other models to consider. It's really the question of like, should we even think about considering other models? And I'll have some discussion points around that. And I'll check in with you, Joanna, ahead of governing board, to make sure we're on the same page.
Okay. I'm sorry I won't hear that discussion. That sounds fascinating.
Oh, Jeannie, I don't think you're really sorry. If I were you, I wouldn't be.
I feel like I'll be closing on my condo that day, so I probably would rather be there. Okay. So Rebecca also in the packet put in some information about the Mount Prospect and Waukegan project, some details about where they are, and a note about Vernon area. Did anybody have any questions for Rebecca? Or Rebecca, was there anything you wanted to call out there to highlight?
I mean, I think the Waukegan and Mount Prospect project is just really swimming along. Both libraries are, meeting their deadlines. We're starting training next month, like in a couple weeks, essentially. We have our first training session for kind of all staff as opposed to project teams. So I can't believe it's mid-June. So things are cruising along.
Okay. Then we will move on to 6C, innovative updates. Deborah included in the packet on page 17 a note at the beginning, or Rebecca probably put this in the packet. One of them put in the packet a note about staff client remote access. And we did want to talk briefly to y'all about that. So I don't know, my note says Deborah is normally the innovative update person, but I don't know if Rebecca wants to talk about it or Deborah, whoever.
I'll start us out and Rebecca can chime in. So we found out last week from Innovative that they are going to change access to the staff client, which is currently accessed through like Windows remote app. So they will begin limiting access to that by IP address. So currently, provided the workstation was an authorized one in Polaris, as long as you had the client installed, you could get to it. But now we are going to have to send a list of public IP addresses, again, to make sure anyone accessing the client is verified and on the list, so to speak. So for libraries who are working at the library, that should be relatively easy. We'll be asking all of you to send us just your public IPs to, again, provide that access. But the tricky thing for both CCF and potentially your staff who use the client is work from home. So we were hoping to get a gauge from this group how often your team, specifically again, technical services staff who use the staff client, are working from home. So if anyone wants to chime in with thoughts on that.
I'll start because I had a heads up that this discussion was coming. So I did talk to my technical services staff and my technology staff. So we have quite a few people that are working from home 1 day a week, but they are using ConnectWise software to connect to the library and then using the staff client from there. So I think if I'm understanding correctly, we would still be coming from the library's IP address. Is that correct?
Yeah, that would be correct.
Okay.
So staff that like VPN into your network or remote, like access a computer on your network remotely, they should still be covered by, again, your library's IP address.
So I was told ConnectWise is not a VPN, but it is a similar setup. So yeah. I don't know about, how about the rest of you?
We have another easy answer. Ours is basically never.
Never.
Yeah, we don't really have the staff who are regularly working
from home. And if anybody needs it, they have a VPN. You can get
Same
it.
here. Same here.
All right.
Yeah, that's good.
So it sounds like folks, at least for this group of libraries, if staff have the option to work from home, they're already remoting in or VPNing to back into the library already, which is great security practice. Love that. So we will keep this on the IT agenda for next week to get another set of feedback on that. And then assuming we're getting a similar response from the other libraries, we'll focus on collecting your library's IPs and not doing anything else, which is amazing. Yeah, we'll follow up next week with IT and continue moving forward with this. Oh, this fills me with so much joy. Yay! Way to go, IT teams at all of your libraries.
Yes, they're doing great stuff. Okay, so Find More Illinois. Deborah, how's that going?
So far, so good. Yeah, we are chugging along. We have 8 libraries currently live on Find More. Park Ridge and Cary went live this week. we've been managing questions and, issues as they've been coming in, but so far it felt like a very smooth rollout for the libraries that have went live so far. So July is kind of like our quiet month. We have maybe 1 or 2 libraries going live. Met goes live July 2nd. And then we'll really gear up for August when the other half of the membership go live that month. So again, so far so good. We've been seeing requests trickle in, so that's been really fun to watch.
Great.
We do have stats in the packet. They do include training statistics. They're not broken out for this month. But Deborah will, they will be the training will fall off pretty soon, and it's not a ton of transactions. But we'll maybe for July have a little bit more context around those stats. This time I was like, oh yeah, I should put those in the packet. So I didn't give Deborah any notice to provide useful context.
And those are on page 22 of the packet.
Yeah, it says net activity report. That's fine more. Okay.
Yeah.
The rollout has been, the rollout has been pretty slow. It's been a nice, which is I think great for library staff. It's just kind of been like an easing in to both the borrowing and the lending. So I'm expecting to see those numbers hopefully pick up for next month.
Great. And I realized I skipped over, there was a brief system update report because we've had a little bit of downtime. Did anybody have any questions about the system performance issues? Okay. UX recruiting, Rebecca, did you want to give
I'm so excited. She's starting tomorrow.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we'd hoped she'd start on Monday. There was a little bit of a hiccup and we had to delay a few days, but we are confirmed. We will be here tomorrow with Gayatri Shah. She, as I said in the packet, graduated from IIT in May with a master's degree in UX design research and strategy. She has a previous career in interior design. So she has a lot of like client facing experience and talked a lot about like listening and empathy in her interview. So we think she's going to be a really great fit and ready to bring kind of those various industry experiences to CCS. So we're so excited. And, Kiara has been with us now
Since March.
And is taking on more training responsibility with Find More Illinois and taking on a lot more tickets. And I'm just so happy.
Same.
Feels good.
Okay. We're excited for the team too. Okay, so let's move on to reports. It doesn't say they're president, but I have no report, so that's fine. It says president-elect, probably from last time.
Yeah.
Joanna, did you have any report?
I will be on Zoom in July, the day of our governing board meeting. I'm actually leaving for Italy at 3 o'clock that afternoon. So I'm gonna Zoom from home, but Anthony will be in the office to do what is needed. And if I need to sign anything, I can always get to your office maybe Monday or Tuesday. Just let me know. But that I'm all good with all my paperwork for the bank and all that. But I'll be Zooming and then really Zooming out of here. So,
Oh my God. I love that.
And I'm excited to take over in August. And thank you to Jeannie for providing just a really awesome, great year of mentorship and big shoes to fill for me, but I'm excited to work more closely with the team.
Thank you, Joanna. Okay, Secretary, anything?
No report today.
Thank you, Lindsay. Anthony, anything in addition to what the Budget and Finance Committee already presented?
No report. We've got our May month-end financials in the packet. Everything looks really good.
Okay, great. Committees and groups. I'm not sure, was there a report? Yes, that was page 23. Any questions about that report? Okay, Rebecca, you are up for Executive Director's report.
Yeah, so I will start with the EBSCO stuff. So hopefully you all know there's not been a formal announcement yet, but EBSCO did get the contract for the statewide databases. And so for your libraries, there's a lot of impact. So I'm sure that you are all over this already. For CCS, the impact to us is currently limited to our novelist package. Our package includes kind of the base novelist, novelist plus, novelist select, and library aware. Novelist plus essentially is an add-on that includes nonfiction content, whereas like the base novelist is just fiction. Novelist select is the integration into the catalog to like view recommendations and suggestions within the catalog. And then library aware is a different tool entirely that some of our libraries use for marketing and book lists and other things. So last year we renewed for 18 months to line up our renewal moving forward with our fiscal year, because it was mid-year and just, why not line it up? So at that time I said, well, I'm not going to renew for 18 months if we're going to have changes with the statewide databases. Kevin assured me, our sales rep is Kevin Sawyer. You probably work with him as well. He assured me they'd work it out. So we spoke yesterday and they've presented CCS with 2 options. The first option is that we essentially keep our existing bundle. So we have all of our novelist products and library aware and make no additions. And they essentially drop 40% off the price. So it would drop from $85,404 to $52,318. I did some kind of like pre-work on this, and was like hoping that our revised pricing would be closer to like 45 than 52, but like it's pretty much kind of where I thought it was going to be. So I'm happy to go back and negotiate on that, but like that's about what we thought the change would be. So essentially the state is picking up the base novelist, and then we would continue paying for plus, select, and library aware. Option B is they would like us to consider adding book chat, a new feature in EBSCO. We had a demo last year. Book chat is an option to add into Novelist where patrons and staff can do a live chat with a human novelist staff member. So it's not like an AI chatbot, it's humans on the other side answering these chats. And they would then take $17,000 off of our order, as opposed to the other option, which is dropping $33,000 from our order. So more of like a 20% off and then adding this other service. I did not attend the book chat demo. They will do another one for us, but I don't know if it's worth even setting that up, or if we're like, let's just keep where we're at for this year, which would be kind of my impulse. But if folks are like, oh, we kind of thought about book chat, but didn't want to pay for it, I'd be interested to hear that from this group.
So my inclination is we already offer that.
Off. Sorry, Becky, go ahead.
No, you're fine. We have that. We have a chat service on our website that we can provide, like our staff can do that. So it seems like not a good option to me anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what we have our librarians. If we can do it through Novelist, then yeah, I'm a no.
Monica, I'm sorry, what was it you were going to say?
No, I was just gonna agree. And we've been in a lot of chats with Kevin ourselves. He's trying to push additional products on us in place of cutting the price. And I keep saying no. So I'm in favor of recognizing a discount myself.
Anyone want to speak up for book chat?
Not for book chat, but I do have a question, just as a point of clarification. In the budget under expenses, is it electronic resources as the line item for these items? Okay.
Yeah, that also includes RDA Toolkit, which is a much smaller proportion of that. And that's a separate contract with ALA.
Okay,
Yeah, I
Rebecca,
mean, that is my inclination as well. I just didn't want to unilaterally say we don't want your book chat. So I will,
But we don't.
Yeah, that's fair. I will see if I can get that price down a little bit further. But I do think this is we're in a good place. Again, next year, this coming year is kind of like our year of evaluation. Because if we move to a different discovery tool, like if our investigation determines that we would want to move to a different discovery tool, Novelist Select may or may not be an option to use with it. So, you know, I don't want to add anything to our contract with, if we're going to be looking at, like, maybe next year we just drop it all together. The plus component of Novelist is adding nonfiction. Like, I think we can look at some stats and see how much libraries are accessing those nonfiction titles in Novelist. I haven't worked a service desk in some time, but I very rarely did use those nonfiction components. So, yeah, my inclination would be, again, to get the biggest discount we can get at this point, and then reevaluate our need for the service in light of the statewide databases next year.
I think that sounds like a great way to, very smart, Rebecca. Thank you.
Okay. Are there other questions about anything in my report? I do feel a little like this committee jinxed me. Or maybe it was budget and finance. We were talking about budgeting for you know, external IT versus internal IT. And I was like, well, you know, sometimes the shine really wears off of external IT. And then we had our co-location move this weekend. So we are having a debrief tomorrow. We're gonna figure out, like, we're gonna make some plans for moving forward, but there was a longer service interruption than I anticipated. I do think any residual issues we're having are only affecting CCS staff, and that everything is back to normal for library staff and patrons. But that is on our radar to continue making some changes. So I think it was Anthony and Monica specifically. So you two are on my list.
Yeah, it was. It was.
You were not. You were very wise and knowledgeable. And yeah, if there's other questions about my report, I'm happy to address, or things not listed.
Okay.
And then my last
here.
comment would just be to again thank Jeannie for her service and all the members of our committees that will be cycling off. Monica, Anthony, you're going to end up staying on with a new term, and Heidi, thank you for being such great members of executive committee and making my job an easy one, a pleasurable one. I don't know about you.
You are quite welcome, and the feeling is mutual, Rebecca. You make our jobs much easier as well. So yes, thank you, everyone. I have enjoyed my time on CCS, and I will be sorry to leave, but Pam Leffler will do the past president role quite well. We know from experience. So so with that, then I will call us adjourned at what my computer says is 10:38 a.m. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Guys.